India's largest engineering conglomerate, Larsen and Toubro, is at crossroads. The man who led the company for almost 2 decades is now stepping aside, passing on the baton to S.N. Subrahmanyan, who will take over as the CEO and Managing Director. I am privileged to have both Mr. Subrahmanyan and Mr. Naik joining me here on ET Now. Mr. Naik, if I could start with you. Under you, L&T has been a barometer of India's growth story. How does it feel when you look back?
I feel great. When I took over, L&T was a medium-sized company. I mean, total company size was 7,000. Once we gave away cement, it was around 4,500. To grow from there to nearly 1,20,000. After selling off many businesses which were not relevant to L&T's core, I think we are very proud. And I'm personally extremely satisfied that I did what I thought we should do as a company, using that as a platform to build a strong nation.
SNS, if I could come to you, having Mr. Naik around, does it make your job easier? Or as many say, that with him around, it will be difficult for you to be your own man?
I think we look at it in a totally positive sense. He's been a mentor, guide, father figure for many of us in the company, and of course personally for me too. And he saw something in me and sort of started noticing me about 10 to 12 years back. And from there on, he's sort of groomed me up and seen the way forward step by step in many businesses and such other activities. And he has challenged us to do many unbelievable things now. The largest projects, the tallest projects, the biggest projects. It's not possible in a professional big company like this without the absolute backing of a father figure like boss. So I think the way we look at it is to have Mr. Naik as a group executive chairman, and the fact that now he is continuing as a non-executive chairman, but more than that will play a father figure to many of us whenever we have an issue or a problem or something to be talked about or smoothened about. For me, it's a feeling of great satisfaction and a feeling of calmness inside that the boss is still there, the father figure is still there.
Mr. Naik, what is that one attribute that you saw in SNS and you knew that he's just the right man for the top job?
Subrahmanyan I met about 10, 11 years back. Before that, I didn't know him much. Really, during the time of Delhi airport, which was going to be constructed, I came close to him because of the risk review meeting. I went with him for negotiation and so on. And I found that while really he was smart, not only he was smart, he was shrewd also. So I started getting closer and closer to him in interaction on day-to-day business. After Delhi Metro, it came to many other major mega projects which required risk review. Then came a time, slowly, as number of people started to retire, to make up the mind as to who will really take this company for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And I couldn't find anyone other than Subrahmanyan equal to his capabilities in the company.
I remember when you spoke to ET Now in your last interview, you very clearly said you are averse to a non-executive role. What made you change that position?
I'm not saying, I said I'm averse to non-executive role, but then the board continues to persuade me over the last 1 year that I think it is very important that the company which you loved so much and which I do even now, and it will be so till the end of my life. And therefore, I acceded to the request of the board to continue as a non-executive chairman. I don't take it as a non-executive chairman. I take it as having stepped aside to make the way for the young, bright, dynamic CEO who I think will do a great job and will approach me when required.
SNS, I mean, the countdown has clearly begun. I mean, what would be your top priorities when you take up the top job in terms of the focus areas for the company?
Chairman has played a phenomenal part in defining our future, at least the next 5 years. It constantly keeps changing, so nobody can define it for a very long time to come. But to the next 5 years, he has defined it. Much of the investments on the manufacturing, heavy engineering side that we need to do from an engineering manufacturing point of view has been done. Some of the investments have been good, some of it is having some problem for us. So the priority would be to see how to sweat it out or how to solve these problems. On the divestment side, I think again the chairman has played a big part in our strategic plan. We defined what's so core. We are fairly clear as to what's so non-core and what are the kind of businesses that we need to be and that we need to be. 2 or 3 businesses that we are looking on for the future, if I could say that, is defense continues to be what I call as a permanent startup. There are opportunities there, but the decision making both from the government is extremely tedious and slow. But looking into a geopolitical situation, if they start depending on private sector to that much more and a little more liberal in decision making from depending on the private sector to produce what they want, then it will be a good thing for us because we have a base there. We seem to produce results there and we are in a position to capitalize on the opportunities there. We have started a business called Smart World, seems to have picked up quite well. That's where the country is going. So Naik has this habit of saying L&T is where the country needs to be, or we do things that what the country requires to be done at the moment. So Smart World is a business started under his aegis from that point of view. So if we can grow that business, it's a good area to be in. Water is another business which are going very well. We have fairly good projects and prospects therein, and that's another business that will continue to grow. The thrust will, of course, will be on our IT and engineering services business. Both these businesses have been listed right now. They got some momentum. Both put together are about $1.5 billion. We have decent leadership there. We have good opportunities there, and we need to push it up to see what scale we can reach there. So within this fulcrum, assuming the existing business does fairly well and gets the opportunities that it can, and some of these new businesses we are able to push it further to see where we can stretch it to and get moving away from some of the business which you believe which is not our core. I think in another 2-3 years we will be where it needs to be to feel much more proud about how we function as an organization.
Mr. Naik, as you prepare to step aside over the next few months, I mean, definitely the challenges are there quite a bit. In fact, if I look at the investment cycle, it looks rather weak. I mean, the kind of euphoria that we had about the Make in India program, we are yet to see tangible results. Looking into the future, what is the kind of optimism that you have at this point in time? And number 2, how do you rate AMN era at L&T?
I think it's a very difficult question, the last one, because I should not be judging my own era. I feel excited. I feel very satisfied. I go and step aside with a wonderful successor. I think the future of L&T is secured, and the boss is as good as how he does the succession plan. Next 15 years, Mr. Subrahmanyan is definitely there, and I think the L&T will grow from strength to strength. That is really how I see my period, and I feel very satisfied, I can tell you.
And
So
about the macro environment, what do you see are the immediate challenges?
I think I continue to be optimistic. It may have taken some time because India has enormous problems. A lot of them was in the backlog. They are all coming out one by one, but it better come out to get solved. And I think in 6 to 9 months' time, I feel the economy will do better. And certainly in 2018 we'll grow. We have a chance to grow at 8%.
And coming to the just concluded fiscal, which was again your last full fiscal under your guidance, do you think you will be able to meet the goals that you had set for yourself?
I think you wait for the result. Don't probe me into the question which will be answered on 29th of May.
And SNS, I mean, in terms of FY18, I mean, how does the infra capex look like? I mean, are the macro challenges looking slightly better today than it was a month back? For example, one of the challenges that I can think of for Larsen and Toubro is the difficult environment in the Middle East because of the crude prices.
The traditional businesses that used to give us good orders and great results are maybe having some trepidation as we look into it. But some of the businesses which are not new in that sense, but which were there, but maybe which we are not focused on so much, suddenly started pushing up. We see good traction in power transmission distribution. We see good chances in water. Our hydrocarbon business is suddenly looking up. We have some good prospects in defense, Smart World, and so on and so forth. Transportation, heavy civil are seeing good traction. Some businesses like buildings, heavy engineering are having some lower traction. Now that Middle East is slightly coming down, many of the countries are developed and the spend to that extent is slightly lower, we moved on to Africa. We also moved on to Far East, countries like Thailand, Malaysia, and Myanmar, etc. So there are prospects there which sort of suits the kind of technical strengths and organization that we can bring into. We are looking at that also as a growth prospect. So overall, though some areas have gone down, the reasons of being in traditional projects, reasons of being in projects which are required from the economical point of view, stepping on to geographies where we think we are comparatively okay to perform with, I think is standing us in good stead, and that's a lot to do with his vision and how we went about driving us into some of these areas. So we will continue that path as we are chosen.
SNS spoke about some of the non-core businesses, some of the investments maybe which did not do the kind of expectations that the group had while investing. And definitely Hyderabad Metro is one project where things have not gone the way it was anticipated.
Let me address you more holistically. Last 2 or 3 years have not necessarily been very good all over the world from the point of view of acquisition. So a lot of these non-core businesses we have been trying to either restructure, close or sell. And it has not happened fully to our satisfaction. And I think it will take 2 or 3 years. And that is the time I am still here to make sure that restructuring which has been taken in hand is complete with the full satisfaction of the stakeholders. And the value creation that must take place remain as a central focus. So I am very sure that all of these which you named and many more small businesses will be taken care of in terms of one of the 3 options as I mentioned in the next 2 or 3 years.
SNS, I mean, we have seen layoffs across the infra space. L&T is no exception. Would you say the worst is over? And what would be the kind of hiring that you are looking at going towards FY18?
It's a wrong notion to say that L&T has been in forefront of layoffs.
No,
I want to categorically say that
but
that's
if I
not
look
happened.
at the space in general, we have seen layoffs across the sector.
Could be one of the principal reasons for that has been the fact that many of our peers in the industry have during the last maybe a decade or so gone into a lot of BOT and concession projects and have taken on projects which were much beyond their balance sheets or capabilities. That's my view. And in an economy like us, which is still not very rich, when you take on such projects and you have loaded debt on your balance sheets and you are not able to pay it off as the revenue doesn't come in, the profits don't come in, balance sheet gets leverage and you start hemorrhaging, and that's a fact that we see all around. So you see many of our peers are in a bad state because of this, and once this problem comes, there is no quick solution. It takes time to earn the money, to pay the interest and to clear off the debt and come out of it, and you find that in an economy which was not doing so very well some time back. In our case, we have been rather careful about it. We do have our concession projects, which was a problem area, but we recognized it and we stopped bidding for projects in that area. So our idea was to clean it up and to find solutions to make up what was seen to be happening there. You correctly said Hyderabad Metro is a big investment that we are doing. There's still no loss there, but there will be, because it's a huge investment. The interest and interest cost there itself interest and depreciation there will hit us once we start opening the project. But I think we have a fairly decent state government there which understands the problem. So we are talking to them to find solutions, and we'll do that as we go forward. But these are concessions, these are signed projects, and one has to find solutions within the existing bureaucratic and political framework, and there's no solution which was born yesterday. It does take time and we have to go through it.
SNS, another challenge that I would want to talk about is for your IT businesses. How are these companies coping with the new tighter visa rules that the Trump administration is forcing the industry to fall in line with? And would L&T IT, the IT business of L&T also look at US hirings in a big way?
I'll answer it in a different way. I think the H1B or the visa issue is not the biggest challenge facing the IT
Not,
industry.
absolutely not.
It is a challenge, no doubt, but that's not the biggest challenge. We could do it by, yes, hiring more locals and outsourcing more
And
work.
we've
So
seen that
there's a
happen with
solution to that.
Infosys and other
Yeah,
companies, yeah.
Now, the bigger challenge there is the change in technology itself. The traditional forms of application development and ERP and all that is moving towards digital automation, artificial intelligence, use of robotics and different tools to do things much, much faster. Routine matters to be in a way totally missionized, if I can use that word, and to do things in a more terrific speed and automated manner. I think that is where the challenges come in. So the languages that one knew, the codings that we knew, all disappears, and a different form of human talent is required to get onto these challenges and to move it forward.
But the main thing is we will also increase the local US hiring. Second, we will do with the client's approval more and more outsourcing so that the work comes here and gets delivered. And whatever other measures that from time to time we can take, we will take.
So we have stepped up senior hiring, we have stepped up getting in talent towards this. Nearly 28% of our total turnover of IT, which is about $1 billion now, is from the digital area, as we call it. We seek to push that up. So we are confident how to go forward.
But SNS, would you say that L&T, despite the challenges, is on course to meet its 2021 targets in terms of revenue, 2 lakh crore orders? I mean, would you say you are still on course despite the challenges?
We have more or less achieved our strategic plan, but for some ifs and buts. Some of the businesses have done well, some of them are not. That's a challenge Mr. Naik has set ourselves to, and
I'm very confident
we are
that
confident
we'll
that we'll go and
be
achieve
very
it.
near
Yeah,
to that.
yeah, we'll go all out for
Or
it.
we might even achieve and overachieve. So we are within that 5% range.
Mr. Naik, turning to the NPA ordinance that the government promulgated last week, do you see resolutions happening post the ordinance, and do you think the government has created a framework to tackle NPA cases?
Well, see, until now, in my view, the solving NPA problem was left to the banks and generally a generosity of the bank, which means they would not take a hard action against people who have failed to return the debt. I go back to 10 years ago when I was talking to some bankers, and that time the way they were funding all our colleagues, small companies and not viable companies taking on orders which they can't execute. And I had mentioned to them that, you will one day may have a problem because you are funding almost anyone and everyone. And at that time, I don't think they took very seriously, but that is exactly what has happened. And almost entire private sector in no mood to invest on PPP project now. Almost entire. The risk, and therefore more and more investment is going towards government sector or public sector. And if you really look at 100% direct foreign investment allowed in infrastructure building, how many foreigners have come? So there is something wrong in the way we have built our structure to attract the investment in this area. So in my view, this ordinance or this measure was absolutely required. I am in complete support of it. We have to make sure that the country's balance sheet is strong, and for which banking sector is one of the nerve center, and they have to set right their balance sheet. If they have to set right their balance sheet, the NPA has to be resolved or recovered to the extent it is possible by becoming hard if necessary.
SNS, infrastructure clearly dominate the NPA basket right now. You see a lot of resolution happening in this space because you know this sector better than anybody else. You see a lot of resolutions happening there?
So what has happened over the last 2 years, realizing this ballooning of debt and the inability of many of the organizations to pay it in time and within the capability to pay it, what has been done is a conscious effort to come out with projects so that many companies can take some of these projects and thereby reduce the burden. Second is they've gone in for a cross model called the hybrid annuity. I'm not willing to say it's a success so far, but what it does is it gives 40% as capex from the government and 60% as an annuity payment, which sort of eases the burden of your earnings as well as how you borrow money and take it forward. So these are some good measures that have been taken. But to solve this problem of NPA, where there are huge debt burdens on many of these companies, I think it is still far away. It's a 2 to 3 year process. It is not going to happen overnight. Second, if the banks do take over the assets, do they have the right managers and ability to sweat these assets? I don't think so. Where is the talent in the country to do all that? So these are complex issues which will take its own time to come to terms to whatever is required. 2 to 3 years
but
it will take.
it was necessary.
Yeah, but
Mr. Naik, I mean, you spoke to us on Friday where you said that you expect 1/3 of the bad loans to be recovered, which is right now around 7 lakh
That's my
crores.
assessment.
It's your assessment. So what I'm trying to understand
I'm saying
is,
that if 9 lakh crores or whatever is the bad loans, you have a chance to recover up to 3 lakh, but we'll have a lot of persuasion and lot of hard decisions. But maybe, as he rightly said, 2/3 of it, I don't know how they will recover. They have perhaps gone into sunk money situation, bad projects.
SNS, one of the biggest taxation reforms, GST, will kick in from the 1st of July. How does it change the fortunes for a company like Larsen & Toubro?
I think it's a very major reform, right? It's one country, one tax. I think the unusual amount of time was spent by organizations and having indirect taxes department, and these taxes varied from state to state. The formats varied from state to state. The way you file the returns varied from state to state. And for a company like us, it was varying because some were products and some were projects and so on and so forth. I think this tax reform which has come in as GST, I think is a big boon for us. Because we'll have to see the negatives or positives as we go forward. Right now it looks positive from the overall output point of view, the cash outflow point of view. But I think it has tremendous advantage from how we deal with the various tax points in the country, including the NACA, the toll NACA and the octroi posts and all that. I think it will make a very, very significant difference to how goods and services move across the country.
Simplification of any law is anyway welcome.
But Mr. Naik, would you say L&T is ready to embrace GST at this point in time? Because it's just a matter of time before it kicks in.
It is still few months away and we are ready.
There is no challenge per se when it comes to moving on to the new tax regime.
No, I think our finance department has anticipated this, so we are working on this. There's a task force set up. They've gone into details. The little salient details are still to be known, but I think we are well on our way and we are prepared for it, as the chairman said.
SNS, if I could come to you, India has been one of the fastest growing economies, major economies in the world. I mean, with the kind of reforms that we have seen lately, you see growth gather momentum in the coming days?
We are positive, and as the chairman said, extremely confident about achieving our goals that we have set for ourselves. And all our businesses are functioning in full throttle. There are problems, but we are confident we can overcome that. Some of the new areas that we have gone into seem to be doing well, and we are positive about where we want to go.
The last question to you: the market is on a song. The Sensex is hitting 30,000. You, I know, have your ears close to the ground. Do you think it is essentially driven by fundamentals, the kind of euphoria that we are seeing in the stock markets today?
It's a question of what you ask, NPA, 9 lakh crore, which means many companies, investment climate for them is not very good. In fact, nobody wants to invest in certain sector, with certain companies, with liquidity all over the world is ample. So there is more money chasing less investment opportunity. And consequently, the norms for return have somewhat been less, I would say, tough, or rather
Subdued.
somewhat easier. And that has really pushed the market up. I can't call it fundamentally things have become so good that it needs to push up the market so much.
On that note, thank you very much, Mr. Naik.
Thank you.
It's always a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to speak to you. Thank you very much, Mr.
Yeah.
For a great innings going forward.
Find Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/etnow.